Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us at DocFest. We are screening the programs through June 1st through June 11th online, as well as at the Historic Roxy Theater. I'm so excited to be joined today by filmmakers from the program Snapshots. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sarah Flores. I'm the curator of the shorts programs for the festival. I would love to just kick things off by having our filmmakers introduce us, let us know which films they're here with. Hi, Elena.
Hi, how are you, Sarah?
Doing well. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Good,
What
thank
film
you.
are you here with?
I'm the director and producer of the short documentary John Leguizamo Live at Rikers. And that's what Elena Engel. That's my name. I forgot.
Yay,
I
Elena.
introduce myself. You should know
So
who I
glad to
am,
have
right?
you. I'm a really big deal in these squares. Thank you so much for joining us, Elena.
Thank you.
Minglin, am I saying your name properly? I'm sorry if I'm not.
Exactly.
Minglin?
Yeah.
Great, welcome.
Thank you for having me. And hi, everyone. This is Meng Lian. I'm the producer of Gun Cook. It's about Asian woman lion dance troupe.
Thank you so much. Hi, Carla.
Hello, I'm Carla Duarte. I'm the director and producer of Sentire Son, a Afro-Mexican poetic short documentary.
Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us and share your stories with our audiences. I would love to just have you each tell us a little bit about the genesis of your films. How did you find your subject or come to be involved in the project? And Alina, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, well, it's like a lot of documentaries. This was a very personal story that inspired me to make this film. Someone I love very much in this world was sentenced to prison for a nonviolent offense. And basically, it was his harsh experience that forced me to realize I guess you could say the lack of human consideration and dignity in the American justice system. And even though I was powerless to change his life, I thought as a filmmaker, I could at least offer up a more empathetic and hopeful perspective on behalf of all justice-involved young men and women. And short story is I met John Leguizamo, the actor, writer, activist, through an organization called Getting Out and Staying Out, which is an anti-recidivist organization. We were both advocates in the organization. And I asked him if he'd like to go to Rikers and perform for these guys and give them a little bit of laughter where, very little laughter is heard at Rikers prison. And we agreed to make this happen. And we went, and he met with a group of these young men who were incarcerated at the time and waiting for sentencing and trial. And he just had a great soul exchange, and his material is was very accessible to them. And they really got the themes of the content of his play and meaning. And we just took it off from there. It was really very kamikaze filmmaking. We walked out of there with 20 hours worth of material and brought it down to 26 minutes. You've heard the adage, if I had more time, I'd write you a shorter letter. This was in the editing process. This was exactly the challenge of making this film, but we're very proud of it. And we hope that it changes hearts and minds.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Meng Lang, can you tell us how you got involved with the film and kind of how the story came to be told?
Sure, yeah. So I'm the producer, and the director of the documentary is my fiance. So he's actually a professional director, and that's how we cooperate with each other. And we are Asia, and we come from China. And last year is our first Lunar New Year we spent in United States. So he kind of think about what kind of subject he could find in United States. And he think, we come from China, we come from Asia, maybe we can find some Asia artists or Asia communities that we can tell the story as our background, and we can connect with them to tell how their life and how they support each other. And during the Lunar New Year, we saw the lion dance troupe. They are dancers on the street. And actually, we even in China, we not usually see these cultures because they're like disappear in the young generations. So we're thinking, oh, we should reach out. We could reach out to them and to see why they how they continues pass the culture to the young generations and how they survive or support each other in Asian community in Boston. So we searched on the Facebook and Google, and then we found there's a all-female lion dance troupe in Boston. But as we know, traditionally, female is not allowed to perform lion dance because of some traditional reason. So we found it really amazing. So we reached out to them. That's how we found them. And then it's very impressive how they support each other and they beat the concept like female cannot perform lion dance troupe traditionally. So we would love to tell their story to support all the Asian community and support all the females in the world to tell them, can female do it? Absolutely. We just need more practice.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And Carla, can you speak about the genesis of your film?
Sure. I grew up at the border of US and California, or Tijuana, San Diego. So I've been, going back and forth between cultures, between music. Personally, I grew up in a household where there was always music and playing instruments. So music has been rooted in my childhood till now. And for me, music it's a universal language and language that can change the world. So in my community, I started learning about a West African dance community where a lot of Latinos were being part of it. And then in the social scheme, political scheme, Latinos are joining forces with the Black movement, Black Lives Matter. And similar to this situation in Mexico, there's been marches about gender and race or ethnic visibility. So I kind of was like, being from Mexico, but living in the US, seeing the similarity, I started paying attention to what was happening in my community and in my country of Mexico. And that's what started generating this kind of like, I love music. I hear it all the time. I go with the beats, what's here. And Mexicans take pride of their music and their culture. But at the same time, we don't have that reference of like, this type of music comes from or has an influence from this country or whatever. So a lot of the music that we dance proudly in weddings and fiestas, like everywhere, has a very African descent influence. So I started digging about certain music just to find that connection with my community and find out that some of our song and a lot of music and storytelling practices have that influence from our third root. Now it is official. It's the Afro-Indigenous or Afro-Mexican is our official third root of Mexico. And with that, I not only from a cultural and musical standpoint, but politically, the government decided to include Afro-Mexicans in their census just recently in 2015.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow. It's interesting to think about just like cultural identity, especially living in this like liminal space of the border too. I think that your film addresses that in such a poetic way. Thank you so much. I'm going to switch back over to Elena. I was wondering if you could talk about just when you see projects shot in prisons or places that are hard to access, what was that like having John Leguizamo attached to that help that process? How are you able to navigate access and gain the trust of your subjects to allow the story to be told and their stories to be told along with these testimonials and performances from John Leguizamo?
That's an excellent question. It was a long process. After we decided to, creatively decide to do this, I had to go to the DOC, the Department of Corrections in New York City, which is not an easy egg to crack. And I had probably, I would say, 4 to 5 months worth of meetings before they finally realized, oh yeah, John Leguizamo, he's on Broadway, he's an actor, he's been in 100 films. He wants to come and perform for the inmates, then that's okay. They find the right person came along and said, yes, that's okay. You can do it. And they were actually quite wonderful in terms of helping us with the passage and getting, $3 million worth of equipment into donated equipment, I have to say, into the prison. We had a very excellent support team there, in the officers and everyone else. It was interesting, there were only 2 women on the crew, myself and my assistant producer, and the rest were men. We had a lot of equipment and we had to leave it overnight, kind of under lock and key. It was in terms of the subjects, the people that were that John spoke with, they were in the program Getting Out and Staying Out, which is anti-recidivist program, as I mentioned, in Harlem. And they were picked by a couple of the people that were in the leadership of Getting Out and Staying Out. I had not met them before we went in. I didn't pre-interview. I didn't want to know why they were there. I didn't even need to know their last names. All I needed to know is that they were anxious and interested in being involved in and talking with John about very meaningful subjects and themes, a lot of which came out of his play and stimulated the conversation. And so they were handpicked and by the prison psychologist as well. And we had I tell you, it really was like, what are we going to get when we get in here? We were there for 3 days. John himself, as you've seen in the film, his own background was from the streets. And he himself had been arrested and he had friends who were, and he understood. And he said to me so many times while we were doing this, he'd say, God, Lena, they're just kids, they're just kids. And I never met a group of people that had less opportunity to give voice to their feelings and their thoughts, their hopes, their futures. And the really beautiful thing about directing this was watching him interact with them on camera. And it dawned on me at one point, as I was looking at the screens, that John suddenly, in the process of all of this, became the listener, became just John, who John was, not the actor, no pretense, no facade. And these young men became the heroes of their own story and shared openly with him, which was just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to discover that could happen. But we were given so many rules. You were asking what's it like to be in prison. I'm giving you the really long-winded version here. I'm sorry, but it was daunting. I mean, there were a lot of rules that I had to share with production, crew, staff, everybody. The things we could not do. I literally, I couldn't go to the bathroom without 5 guards coming with me. There was anticipation of a lot of problems, and we had not one problem. I was told not to touch these guys, not to really talk with them because they were going to ask me for things. And I promptly turned my back on the person who told me that and walked right over to all of these young men and shook their hand and thanked them for coming. Because the whole point of doing this was to give them an opportunity to express themselves. And in GOSO, we have the 3 E's, which is what we give them or attempt to give them, which is education, employment, and emotional support. And my film, I knew from the get-go, was going to be more about the emotional support than anything else. And I knew that we wouldn't get them to open up unless we just treated them like human beings, because, it's sad. I mean, it's not the culture of our justice system for a lot of reasons. Yeah. So
Thank you so much. So there's so much humanity that comes through in your film. And so
Thank you.
understanding more of that process, I think, is helpful. In the prison industrial complex, it's so easy for these, I mean, kids, really, they're so young, to be completely dehumanized. And when you look at the interactions within the film, there's so much intelligence and light and hope that comes through. Um, and I'm sure in no small part thanks to the fact that you insisted on treating them with the respect that they deserve. And so thank
And
you.
they do. Everybody
Yeah.
does. Any human being.
Any human being. And the system wants to turn people into statistics. And I love that you and your film and John are resisting that through the work of your organization and through the project itself.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Minglin, hi.
Hi.
I am just so obsessed with your main subject, the Chang Im Tan. Like, she is such a force of nature in the way that she's like, we're not going to stand back, you know. And
Yeah.
she talks about how she always wanted to engage in martial arts, but wasn't allowed to, essentially because of like gender dynamics and gender norms. Can you speak about what it was like to work with her and how the film evolved? Because you're talking about one thing, but you're also talking about this larger issues of how Asian women are perceived within society, sexism, racism. Can you talk about, was Chang like a force in guiding that storytelling throughout it, like through her perspective? Just what was it like working with her and evolving the story with her?
Sure. And Channing is a very, very amazing and great person that we work with. And when we talk to her, we never feel like, because we have the age gap or somehow, but we never feel we are far away from each other, that she have that charm to make you to talk to her and listen to what she's trying to do. The most thing I feel impressed, I think it's two, yeah. One is how she support us as we are making the documentary. Every time we talk to her on what we want to shoot and what we want to express in this documentary, she is always support at first and also give us her opinions, that how she know about the Asian community, about what Asian females are having trouble or going through at that post-pandemic period, because a lot of them are getting hurt on the street, or a lot of them are hearing some bad voice just because of their gender or their skin color. And she also tell us how their community, like the Lion Dance Troupe, support all the female organizations, nonprofit organizations in Boston or Massachusetts area, because when they do performance, they sometimes donate the money they got from the performance to those communities to help the women who is under like some in-house issues, or who don't have financial support, or who is losing their job, or who got hurt on the street because of the post-pandemic stuff. And another thing is she care about education. She's always encouraging all the females in the line dance troupe to live a bigger life. She said, because all of them, they're not only the dancers, they all have their own job and all have their own life outside the troupe. But every time after their training or after their performance, they will have a check-in time. So everyone is telling what's going on in my life and what issues I'm at. Anyone could give me a suggestion or somehow. So she encouraged people to do that. And she encouraged the young generations to think about where you come from, what you want to do, and how you could help the people or females around you. So that's how I feel she's amazing, because she's not only doing a good job by herself, she's also leading all the people around her to do a better job and live a bigger life. So I feel like she's amazing, very amazing on that way. And we learn a lot from her. Like, we are young generations, we learn from her how we could live in the future.
It's so beautiful and so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carla, when I first saw your film, I had to go back and look because I thought that it was almost a self-authored film as I watched it, because it's so incredibly intimate and personal, that I was like, oh wait, no, somebody who directed this, Carla, is just a genius at working with somebody in such a like intimate and exploratory way. I was wondering if you could talk about how you and Francesca came to work together, and what that kind of trust relationship was like, and then also how you manifested that beautiful imagery through dance that kind of weaves in and out of the story.
Yeah, thank you. I met Francesca and started working with her 1 year prior to production. And even though we were like very close to that production week, we continued the dialogue afterwards. And we had to come back to the studio and pre-record her again because she'll keep adding more intimate pieces to to her personal journey as she was discovering herself through the music that we were exposing her to. So when I met her, it was just Francesca, who grew up in a Mexican household listening to what we know as the most popular music, rancheras, or Mexican pop music, which is very folkloric. But she has never been exposed to the other rhythms, the Afro-Mexican rhythms of son jarocho or son artesa, and just the drum in itself. So I started sharing musical pieces, and she started kind of like journeying her life through this. I want to say auditory experience. So when I invited her, she felt very comfortable in classical music. Ballet, she has grown dancing ballet, but as I was exposing her to break out from the structure of ballet to another structure of West African dance, she was almost like revealing parts of herself and exploring parts of her identity. She grew up as an Afro-Mexican, but her identity was more of a, I'm Mexican, but I don't belong in Mexicans because of the color of my skin. And when I'm hang out with my African American friends, I'm not as dark. So colorism is a topic. The familiarity with the ballet as a structure of dance, and bringing it to decolonize herself from that ballet European structure, and delving herself and realizing parts of herself through other types of music, was very revelatory for her as well. It was the first time taking a West African dance, being exposed to a community of West African dancers and drummers. So just that experience, it was real. It was a very real performative and musical experience for her. And and through that, she was revealing and expressing her identity and her ethnicity.
It's so beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, that's all the time that we have today for our Q&A. But a huge thank you to our audiences at home. Please tell everybody to log in, give the fest some money, and help share these stories. And thank you so much to our filmmakers for bringing these to light. I think really impactful, beautiful narratives that we're so happy to share with everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
You.